Welcome back to the Martian. We're here at day 64 already, so that's 2 months survival on Mars. We are still surviving. Chicken Bob II died, but we'll work on that today. We're just chilling here a little bit, taking a bit of a drink, and trying to find our helmet. Just hiding in the corner. Alright, so last time we started a little bit of a script to try and automate the oxygen replenishment. So it should go into this canister and automatically vent things out of the base when the pressure gets above a certain value. So that's all real nice and yeah, sounds like a great idea, but we didn't really manage to do so. I essentially learned that I'm still not at the stage where I can write pieces of script while explaining what I'm doing and thinking somewhere in the middle. So that's the problem there. I'm not at a high enough level, and I don't do this too often. So I did a little off-stream scripting, and I'll explain what I did today. So that's the first bit. After that we'll look into plant genetics, because at that point we essentially automated our base and we can focus on expanding again, the more fun stuff. So let's get started. I'll go outside and work on this bit. Alright, so let's make sure that we have enough power. Switch that out, and I think our notebook might be running out. Nope, it's not. It does have the wrong chip though, so we might want to switch that around. For the Atmos analyzer will make things easier. And the other thing we did last time is to finally improve the visual pleasing bit of the base, where we now have a bit of a clean look going on. We will change the ceiling at some point as well, because it makes a huge difference. Alright, so we go to a little corner here downstairs, which also needs some renovation at some point, but that's not our priority now. So here we have our circuit housing. Now what is important is that using this transformer, we separated the grid from our main grid. So we have this little network of cables that is connected to a dead tank, this back pressure regulator, the filtration system, IC housing, and upstairs to the O2 canister in our base, and the pressure regulator that is attached to this oxygen pipe just underneath the canister. So the idea is that we take out air from our base when the pressure gets too high, so that runs into this orange line and this mixture of CO2, O2 and nitrogen. It will get circulated into this ventilation system, and the oxygen will get pulled out and separated into this bit. I now realize there's a mistake, because we will also filter out the pollution and we'll just ditch that directly in the oxygen line, so that's stupid. We don't want that. So let's quickly take that out, switch that around and continue our story. So take 2 filters and that's fine. So the oxygen will get filtered out, it will end up in this line, and it will hit the pressure regulator upstairs. That will build up pressure and will generate these oxygen canisters that you just saw me replacing, allowing us to get constant supply of oxygen. Now, it's tricky when you build up pressure, because that's the moment where you can have explosions, so we want the system to shut off on 2 conditions mainly. The first condition is if the base pressure is below a certain degree. We don't want it to steal air, because we also need air in our base. Second, if we're building up too much pressure in this bit, then we want the system to stop as well. Now, one of the things that will help us is this bit, the back pressure regulator. We will set it to 30 to 100 kilopascal. I honestly don't know how much pressure one of our canisters can take, and The annoying thing is that it's quite difficult because it depends on the temperature, of course. So the volume depends on the temperature, and that determines the pressure. So that's a tricky combination. So I just know that 3500 is good, so that's what I'm aiming for now. We could possibly increase it, but we'll do that maybe later on. So let's get into the coding bit, now that I clarified what's more or less the goal. So for that, we'll clean up our inventory a bit more, get rid of this thing, and clear our screen. Right, so we have this chip, and it will read the input from the filtration unit in white, then the pressure regulator above ground, the small insulated tank, which is essentially the thing holding our canister, gas tank storage all the way at the end of the hallway, and gas sensor. We won't be using that actually, but what you could do is you could read the pressure inside the base using a gas sensor, but that's actually not required. Then we go to the laptop itself, and we will import the script that I just made. Alright, so I just explained how to set the IC chip. So the first thing to do is to specify what all these things are. So that's right here. We load the filter from D0, the first screw, pressure pump from D1, the oxygen canister, which is actually an oxygen tank, but we'll just call it canister because then I remember what it actually is. That's the important bit about scripting for me, is that I still remember what's there. So you want to add sufficient amount of annotations so that you still know what's there in about a month. Because that's the point where it starts to get tricky, when you go like, don't know what is written here, I better start completely from scratch. Right, last one, gas storage. So that's the big tank at the end of the hallway. So you see that I have the gas sensor here as well, but it's grayed out because we don't really need it. And I will explain why. Here we just state variables that we will use downstream. There is maybe a more efficient way to do this, but essentially what we do is that we make use of the first memory slot somewhere in the system to store base pressure. And we do the same for oxygen, pipe pressure, the volume in the tank, and the canister pressure. So these will be all the things that we'll be reading from these units. But that will be clear downstream. So you can kind of forget about this in the sense that you don't have to remember all of these names. We just make the script remember that these things exist and should be stored in the memory. That's the way I remember it, at least. So here's just a little bit of description of what we want to do. This is just for us to remember what's actually happening. So we want to do a bunch of pressure checks before we start filtering off O2. So those are basically the safety switches that will allow us to prevent any accidents. Now, an important condition is that we want the volume pump to just always pump oxygen in the canister, regardless of all the safety checks, because that will take away pressure, so that's not really important. And as far as I know, there's no way this can go wrong, because it will stop when it reaches a certain pressure. So it already has its own safety switch. The reason why we want to switch it off sometimes is because it will use a bunch of power even though it's not pumping. These are just the conditions. We want to set the pressure pump to this value. We cannot do that using the script. I tried, and then it said there is something going wrong because I can only read the pressure and not set it. And then what else do we have? Right, we have to set the back pressure pump to 3200. We didn't really talk about that, but that's the thing that I just tweaked. So that's that little thingy over here. It will take away pressure in case this pressure buildup is too high, and it will store it in the gas tank. So, and then here I made a little overlay of what's happening. So this is the canister, it has like high pressure, the pipe will have pressure just below that. And then if it's too high, the back pressure will take some pressure away and store it in a big tank. Alright, so that's a lot of talking. We'll go over it step by step and hopefully you'll be able to follow. If not, feel free to ask questions, place some comments, whatever. I deliberately am not publishing this code for two reasons. One, there's probably better versions out here. And two, it's highly specific for the setup that I've made. So I think it's more valuable that you will understand how to do this yourself than to just copy paste the setup completely. If you want the script regardless, then I will place it somewhere in the description. But I think it's important that you at least try and don't copy paste, because copy pasting doesn't really teach you anything, whereas the typing bit and thinking will. Also, don't be too hard on yourself. Just start like an extra save or something, and don't try to do this with your real save initially. Alright, we have a bunch of these starting conditions. These are just like headers that we'll jump to. So these are little bits of code, and each time we'll jump to the next bit. So this is a pretty linear script. It will just go from 1 to 2 to 3. Doesn't really do back and forth jumping, except at the end it will jump back to the start. So in that regard it's pretty linear, and there are probably more advanced way of doing this, but I'm at this level, the noob level. So the start of the script will turn everything off. So it will turn off the oxygen filter, which will build up pressure in downstream pipe system. So we'll take air from the base, filter oxygen out, and with the filtering it will build up pressure in the white pipe. We want to set the pressure pump off as well. Just a starting point, nobody does anything. That's the safe starting point. Then we want to load a bunch of values into variables. So like I said, we define these variables upstream, here. You can forget about this bit, you have to use it, but here things will get interesting. So you say, from D0, which is our filter, I want to load pressure input, and I will call that variable base pressure. That's the way I interpret this. Not sure why the order is mixed, and that was the part that confused me last time, because I kind of forgot that this was the order of things. So essentially this will use the filtration unit and read the pressure input and store it into this value. So if we go to the filtration unit, so this is it, then we can scroll down and we can see the logic part and what it can do. And it is a big list. And among this big list is pressure input, and it can read it. It has that for the pressure output as well, and it even has a pressure output 2 right here. Now you might wonder what this actually represents, and this represents these ports. So this is the filtration input, the filtration output 2, and the filtration output. So what it will do, it will allow us to read the pressure in the input. In other words, the pressure that is in these pipes, which is currently above 55. Also, it can read the pressure on the output, so that's the pressure in this pipe, which is currently at over 1 megapascal. Right. So that's important. Then we load the O2 pipe pressure, so we make this new variable, and we again use the filtration unit and use pressure output. So like I just said, it can also read the output of the pipe, so that represents the pressure in the white bit of piping. So those are the most important ones. And then we have a last one, which is the pressure in the canister. Now this is its own separate little thing, because essentially what this does is to read if our oxygen canister inside our base, if that already reaches the pressure of 3500. So that's what it will do every time that the script starts, and from there it will jump to check canister. So for this we don't need any safety checks. We will just say if the canister pressure is bigger than 3400, you can jump to the next bit. So in other words, if the canister pressure is already at the value of around 3500, then you can just continue. And what this means is that it won't switch on the pressure pump. In case the pressure is not at 3400 or higher, it will switch on the pressure pump and it will still continue. So this is just the first bit, and essentially it determines whether or not the pressure pump should be switched on or not. So I've written that down behind it in a way that I find logical. So this is just the first bit. This is the most simple part, and this basically regulates our pump pressure, and it will save a bunch of power. Then we go to the more advanced bits, which is the second part. Let me take a bit of water. So this is the first safety switch, check tank. So here we say that if the tank volume is bigger than 100, then you'll jump to sleep. And so it will skip all of this and will jump straight to sleep, meaning that our filtration, oxygen filter, will not be switched on. So there won't be any buildup of pressure, everything will just remain off, apart from the pressure pump. And we will start again at the start of the script. So if that's the case, then the pressure pump will actually remain on for 5 seconds, because the sleep bit that this will jump to, so the sleep bit that it will jump to has like sleep for 5 seconds and then jump to start. So then the pressure pump will stay on for 5 seconds and it will go all the way up to here again, check it, and will remain a little bit too many M's in that word in this off state. I don't really know if this value is correct, so we will check that in a bit. But again, this is a safety check, so we don't really think we will ever need this, but just to be sure, we'll check it. So from here we jump to the next bit. We could just write these underneath each other, but I think this is very clear and noob friendly, which is great for me. So it will jump to the O2 pipe. So this is the second safety check. And it states if the pipe pressure in the O2 pipe is above 3300, you go to sleep. And this should not happen for a long time, because this back pressure is set to a lower value, so this will vent off anything that is above this value. Why do we want to do this? It's because we want to prevent our base from having too much pressure. And each time that it hits that, we will store it into a big O2 tank. So that's the reason for using this setup. I don't expect a big pressure buildup, because we don't really introduce a lot of gas there, so it's just to be safe. So this bit says if the pipe pressure for some reason exceeds that value that the back pressure regulator should actually prevent, then you will go to sleep and the script will still do nothing. But if it also passes this check, then we will actually start the O2 filter. Here we'll put a value, so let's put that on 55 pressure. And what this does is that if the base pressure is below 55, we will go sleeping again. So then we don't actually need the filter. But if for some reason the base pressure exceeds 55, then we want the filter to switch on. We want it to catch oxygen, filter it away. When it's doing that, we want to go to sleep again. So the filter stays on for 5 seconds, we will jump to start, all the way up here, and it will set filter to off, pump pressure to off, and everything will start again. So what this should do is it should prevent the base pressure from exceeding 55 kilopascal. It should prevent the oxygen pipe from exceeding 3300 kilopascal, and it should store a bunch of oxygen in our canister at 3500 kilopascal. So that's written down here. We could include the base somewhere in this difficult setup, but not sure how to do that in a logical way, like just to describe it here. But that's what it should do. So the only thing we need to check is how this tank volume works, because I'm not sure if 100 actually makes sense or if it doesn't. We're getting a water warning, but it's still fine. Yes, tank. That's not the word for it, I think. Tank, just? Ah yeah, that's it.
Power low.
So what this will do is it can read pressure actually, so that will be easier because I was talking about volume. And the reason for that is because we know the maximum volume and I don't know the maximum pressure. Does it really matter what the volume is? Probably not, because we didn't connect any volume pumps to this. So we can actually ignore the volume, I think, and just worry about the pressure in this pipe. So let's do that. So we'll make sure it doesn't exceed 3500, I guess, the magic number, and then we're golden. So it was just called pressure, right? Yep. So using the gas storage in D3, we will tank. Let's just call it tank pressure. Then the script will give a warning that we have a variable downstream that is actually not defined. Or did we not use that at all, actually? I don't think we actually specified DrPaul at any point. So that was a little mistake. So we do so here. Load this variable from D4. Gas store. Not really happy with that name. But it's fine. D3. And then it's just pressure again. And then we just say that if tank pressure exceeds 3500, or we can make it 3400, doesn't really matter, go to sleep. Hey, stop doing this. Can we just type? Yeah, I don't know why this is going a little bit strange. Switch. High tank pressure. Alright. So then we'll go to sleep, otherwise we'll continue doing this bit. Just checking the pipe pressure, vent base, yeah, that's cool. We'll export it. I'm just wondering, should we do anything else? No, I think this is fine. Now I should be confident in my own script, but that takes a bit of time. So let's see if we will get an error, or if we set this up correctly. Alright. Let's see what happens. It's not flashing an error, by the way, that's the important first bit. Then this pressure is exceeding 55, so at some point it should now realize that that's the case. It doesn't. Interesting. So it seems something is wrong with our code. Let's see if we can find out what it is. Let's first check the above ground bits actually. Well, we're going for a little bit of water and power and things like that. So I can show you this final bit. We'll take a sneaky way. Let's also briefly print some carbon dioxide filter because that's getting a bit low. Carbon filter, we can just print one, but it's fine. Alright.
Hydration critical.
Yeah, we'll take a bit of water in a bit. Such a drama queen. Alright, let's go. So here is a hidden pressure regulator behind this big ass block. And it's on and it's set to 3500. And that's connected to our, should watch out with that, to our canister. So that's working. Go inside, check it out. Speed up this bit. Alright. Does this hold? It does hold actually a canister at a nice pressure. So we can immediately make use of that. We'll drop this for a little bit, so our guy will be happier. And is there something to eat? Doesn't look like there's potatoes, so we will take this. Can we split one, split one, split one? I wish we could just get a bigger bowl, but it's not allowed. We have to eat them one by one. Alright, so that will be fine. Let's cook another one. So the pressure is actually quite low, which might explain why the script is not doing anything. So let's see if we can increase that a little bit and cheat. So we open the oxygen that it's nicely pumped into this canister. And we see that we are slightly above 55, so let's do that one more time. don't mind this one. That's actually measured from inside the plant room, and this takes a bit of a delay. So we're at 56 actually, thanks to the temperature rise. So we'll pump a bit more oxygen in here, and then we we quickly go downstairs and check. We might need our suit for that purpose, so let's put that back on. And perhaps close it. Alright, so the reason why our script wasn't working could just be because the pressure was too low. So then it is actually working, but we just cannot see that it's doing anything. Which is a little bit of a flaw, because I'm not working with a lot of displayers or something. So let's check it out. Set to 55, right? Whereas this pipe pressure is now higher, 60. It's connected to, I should explain this maybe, to a passive vent. So this is identical to the base pressure with some delay. So let's take the chip. And it is switching on now. You can see the pressure building up. And it's stopping after 5 seconds. That was quick 5 seconds. And it's starting again. For 5 seconds and then stop. So it will keep doing that until the pressure in the base is down to 55. While this one builds up the pressure. Very slowly. Because this isn't a pressure pump or something, this is just a filtration unit, so this is not the most efficient setup, but for our purpose it will be more than sufficient. So I think this will take quite some time, because of the 5-second rule. We'll just call it the 5-second rule now. But on the other hand, we might be there in like a second or two or something. Meanwhile, we'll paint the tank white, I guess. Right, so now things are correct again. It's mainly oxygen, so I think it's close enough. Alright, let's see where this is going. So this is now below 55, and it looks like the filtration unit gives up. It accepts that it should sleep, whereas this pressure is now around 2. So that's not really high, so there is really no job for this pressure sensor still. The thing that we could optimize about the script is that it also goes to sleep at some smart time. For me, it's fine like this. We automated like most of the parts, so I think we can stop for now. So yeah, the system is now idle until some idiot ditches a bunch of pressure in the base again, and then it will continue. So as a final check, we will close the laptop. Let's try it again. Watch our power being real low. We go inside the base one more time, and we should see that the pressure is now 54 or something. Takes a bit. Alright, so it's a bit lower. Probably because, well, either because it's cooling down, because it's night, or I don't know, because of the 5 seconds. Well, we have to check a little bit if this doesn't continue to drop. Meanwhile, we'll return the laptop, because we are convinced that we did a good job. I can still switch it off. Yeah, it continues to drop. That's a little bit scary, but I think it's just because of the temperature. We can check because downstairs we shouldn't have more than the 1.1 megapascal in the pipe. So let's check that. Yeah, it sits steady at 50. I think we're fine. Why are we carrying this around though? Alright, let's check it. Are you behaving? So it's interesting that this pressure is actually higher than the one upstairs. I'm not sure why that is. And this is building up some pressure. That is strange. Right, so what we'll do is, because I don't like the 49 pressure that it's currently at. Oh, we have our laptop upstairs. We're super confident in our setup, so what I will do is that we'll open our oxygen here as well.
Anti-critical.
Because we can get a new one. Alright. So we'll change the value of the 55 pressure to 60, I think. Just so that we will keep a bit of high pressure at night as well. Yeah, I think that makes sense. Because the plants grow at their fastest speed above 50, I think. So that's why we want to aim for that bit. But apart from that, I'm not worried yet, because the system seems to behave relatively well. So we'll see what will happen. The worst case scenario, plants will die, but we don't have any chickens or anything, so we will bring this for now with us, just to prevent coming back and forth here all the time. Seems like a smart idea. Alright. Don't you dare going on. Alright, it is behaving. Would probably make sense if I put like a base pressure measuring here as well or something. I don't know. So you see the temperature is falling a little bit, and that causes the pressure to fluctuate as well. Even though it's insulated pipe, so that's a little bit strange. But maybe because, I don't know, because the volume pump is not or something and it's doing things. Don't know. Well, this seems to behave. We'll put it to the test once more, and then we just stop looking at it and do something that's a bit more fun. Because for me, the coding is only fun for a limited amount of time. And then I want to do something less technical. Alright. So let's put it to the test. We'll open our helmet. Let out some oxygen.
Anti-critical.
So this should be able to go all the way up to 60 now, right? Or at least 55 or something. Well, it is changing, but it is very slow. It's just very confusing because the temperature is decreasing. This thing is venting around air as well. So there's all these temperature fluctuations that kind of mess up our measurement. So it's not just an idle value. It's a complex thing. But I can definitely say that the temperature is overall increasing, so that's fine. So it's not doing anything strange yet. It's just that this bit is a bit slow because the pressure pump is only on for 5 seconds each time. I am tempted to just open this oxygen, but that's our emergency supply, so it might not be the smartest thing to do. Alright, meanwhile we'll do something else. We will look at our plants and manage that a little bit. So that we're not just impatiently looking at some values. There's not a lot to manage actually. It's complaining about the incorrect atmosphere values. Is that because there's... which would that be? So it's low CO2 or... I guess CO2 is a little bit low. We could ditch some CO2 in here, I think. It would speed up the process. So that's, I guess, for... well, that will also increase the pressure, right? So maybe that's not a bad idea. So pressure is still increasing. Let's get some CO2. Because we're just pumping a lot of oxygen around. But that's, of course, not great for plants. So they're slowly choking. Let's set up this system. This is a very manual approach to get some CO2 from Mars' atmosphere into this thing. So we have to watch out that the temperature doesn't get too low, so that's why we have this bit. So this is a very slow process. This is our reserve of eggs. We have a bunch of them actually. We have 6 of them, and we will soon hatch another chicken because they are slowly decaying. So that will be in the next bit. Let's see, how are you doing? We got some pressure. I think this should make a difference for the plants. We should switch off the temperature because that's getting some a little bit high. Alright, we'll wait until it hits 2, I think, and then we're fine. So yeah, next bit will be chickens and solar panels, assuming that this is fine. And then the plant lab. So the chicken bit will be quick, and the solar panels as well. That's no innovative things there, no surprises. So let's see, we'll close this. Does this actually contain? Yeah, a little bit of pollutant, right. So what would the pressure be? It's a bit low. Alright, so we're still losing pressure. That's suspicious. It's because the temperature is decreasing. I don't know. Let's open this quickly. So we have some CO2 in our system again. Yeah, so we might use the pressure regulator after all. The or is it the gas sensor? This thingy. Because maybe the filtration unit is not accurate enough. Because pressure keeps dropping despite the temperature rising. Yeah, I think we will switch it around. Oh, I left the scrubber on. Well, it's fine. Let's get the laptop out. So you are on all the time because for some reason you think the pressure is high, whereas it's really not. So now you're off, so we can take it and change this quickly. So what we want to do is to switch this on, the gas sensor inside of the base. Then we want to read base pressure still. Then the base pressure will be now determined by gas sensor D4, which is set inside the base. The value for this is just pressure, because it's a gas sensor. And it uses pressure directly, so it doesn't have like pressure input or something. So that's why we need to change it. And from there, everything should be fine because it will still check the pressure of the base. But we should be able to decrease it to like 57 or something, 58, I don't know. It doesn't really matter much. Let's see. I'm also thinking that maybe I didn't export the script and that's the reason why things are going wrong. Could also be the case. But the net result should be that the pressure is fine. And it is actually rising now, which is very interesting. Because of the rise in temperature during the day, I guess. Right, so we do one check, final check upstairs. And then things should be fine. It's a little bit boring, but it will prevent our base from blowing up, so it is quite important. You go in there. And we still carry around this empty oxygen filter, or CO2. Right. A little bit tedious, this part of the game, but it makes it interesting as well. So let's see, pressure is fluctuating, of course, because of circulating air. Alright, let's see, you are at least behaving. So this causes some major shift in pressure, that's good. Then there should not really be a reason to stop this now. So that we have a major decrease in pressure. Yeah, so it's still rising, that's good. Let's do this a bunch more times. So that's not really going fast, of course. So we might just ditch a bunch of oxides in here, I guess. Are the plants at least happy now? Yeah, so it was indeed the CO2 that was limiting, which is understandable. Alright, let's ditch a bunch of ice in here, which is in our mining belt. Start with half, so you'll see it evaporating from our hand, and the pressure is getting above 60. Now this whole script should be now active, reducing the pressure to exactly 57. No cheating game. So it does like 5 seconds sleeping, checks again, so we'll take a little bit of time. Oh, did we set it to 58? I set it with 58, so that's why it's stagnating now. Alright, so I think that's it. Let's try it one more time. Pressure above 58. Script takes care of it. Yep. Alright, so that's then sorted. I'm very happy with that. So we don't have to stress about that. We have constant supply of oxygen. We can move this guy out of here actually. Let's do that because we are confident. So let's take you out of here. Not sure if this is insulated or not. Also not sure if it makes a difference. Let's take this as well. So it's the connector. Still looking at the pressure every now and then. I'm not convinced that I was able to do something that works. Close our helmet perhaps. Alright. Where do we want to move this bomb? Let's see, we can move it... I don't know, it's also something that's highly explosive. I think we'll just store it far away. Do we still have something like frames? Yes. And sheet as well. We will store it safely somewhere around here, I think. Right, so we will dig it out a little bit so it's not too ugly. It's not very pretty to make these isolated bits, but I don't know. It's a survival game, right? So I think we should put some emphasis on everything safe and surviving. So we'll take you out. Served us well. We think we can trust in our new cool system, and we will, most importantly, pin you to the ground. So now when there's a storm, this should not be disappearing or something. Not sure if that will fully work, but I surely hope it does. Because this is our backup now, in case things really go wrong. Look at that, 58 pressure. Right, and then for the final check, we can check once more downstairs, because we're super paranoid about things. And we should see then that the pressure in the pipe is, well, at least not above 3.2, and it's not Yep, and this is also never activated still, which makes a lot of sense. So things are going well. Not sure why this is off. Because we're out of power? Ah, yeah, we are. Right, well, that's shouldn't be a problem. It's a bit unfortunate, but it shouldn't be a problem. But that makes it clear that we indeed should focus on getting our solar panels up a bit more. Because this new system will take up more power, obviously. So that's the next job. But I will first take a break. So, I hope to see you in a bit. But for now, bye bye, and thanks for joining.